Hello and welcome back to Life Unpotted. We are here today with a very great book that we are going to talk about. It is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. We've both had this for about a year. I think we both picked it up last March, actually. And I started reading it. I read probably 75% of it and then put it away for about a year. And I recently picked it back up. Sophie's been reading it probably for the past, month or so. And I forgot how dang good this book is because it really can change the way you go about your life if you just spend 5 minutes reading it. So it's really unique in that way that the way that Rick Rubin lives his life is very embodied in his writing style, and it's very easy to understand what he's saying. It's very simple, but it can be applied to that very moment. So I like to just pick it up, read a few minutes of it per day, because I see it really broadens my perspective on how I view everything, or really creativity in each moment of my life. And I think that's a really playful thing and a really fun experience to play with. So we are going to talk a bit about it. Sophie has a lot of annotations in her book. I have some, but hers are piling out with sticky notes. So she's looking at me like, let me get this started.
It's funny because with a lot of books that I read, whenever I go back and reread them, it's really cool to see the annotations I made the first time around and then kind of revisiting it literally a year later. And specifically with this book having to do with creativity, after having real life lived experience creating music and creating art and working on a book that I'm writing, to look back and to go, whoa, I resonate with this even deeper than I did before. And just to start off, I think if there's any point I want to make in this episode, it is that every single person has the ability to create innately. And when you zoom out and you remember that society, as we know it, has been created, we zoom out and we look to nature to guide us, we realize that everything on this planet is being created. By what, how that's happening, it's really magic. And we all have the ability to tap into that magic. I'm going to read a line from the section called Tuning In. I think I might have even quoted this on another episode, probably last season. He writes, "Think of the universe as an eternal creative unfolding. Trees blossom, cells replicate, rivers forge new tributaries. The world pulses with productive energy, and everything that exists on this planet is driven by that energy. Just as trees grow flowers and fruits, humanity creates works of art. The Golden Gate Bridge, the White Album, the Hagia Sophia, the Space Shuttle, the Colosseum in Rome, the Phillips screwdriver, the iPad, the Philadelphia cheesecake. Look around you. There are so many remarkable accomplishments to appreciate." And this is the line. I did cite this, I remember, in the past. "Each of these is humanity being true to itself, as a hummingbird is true to itself by building a nest, peach tree by bearing fruit, and a nimbus cloud by producing rain." I cited, "Thought impedes. A flower doesn't have to think about being a flower." So I just think that if I was to sum up everything I've learned over the past several months of creating work and having work come out that I've been really satisfied with, was the recognition of I didn't think about any of it. It kind of just unfolded out of me because I was going through life experiences where I needed creativity to help me. I needed it. So I think that's just a really, really, really interesting thing to highlight. And we can go more into detail about like celebrity culture and Hollywood and kind of have how this whole societal construct has made us think that there's a certain hierarchy you have to get to be a creative, an artist. But this really shows us that what's really happening is that when you are connected to your being and you naturally let what needs to come out without resistance by surrendering, you too, just like a flower, will naturally bloom. And it's really quite a beautiful thing to watch.
I think there's a lot to be said there, but keeping it high level as we are going to layer into this conversation, I think Rick Rubin does an amazing job of shifting the way that you think about creativity. Like you said, he states that it's our right to live in a creative way. So one, it helps us look at creativity in a different way. The quote you were reading, it made me think of a meditation I did once years ago. Sit down, shut your eyes, so on, and then open your eyes. Look at everything around you in your room. Look at the chair, look at the bed, look at the pillow. To you, they might appear as items, but everything is here because of you. Everything in this room, you have created this unique room as it is. And that's not even to go into the intentionality of that. It's really just to exemplify that creation and creativity is in everything that we do. Every granular experience that we have, our creativity gets put into that, whether we're using it or not. It doesn't always mean that there is going to be the standard output of how you think of creativity is drawing, music, books. It can be anything. And how you live your life. Your life is a creation. Every moment is a creation. So I think that when we're thinking of creativity, it's really about how does it nurture you? How does it come back to you? How does it bring you to life? It's not this pressurized thing of you need to create the most interesting piece of work because we're going to compare everyone's book. We're going to compare everyone's piece of art that they've drawn because one is inherently better than the other. And that's the truth that we learned, or I learned in my life, that we are meant to have works that are judged based off the quality, when in reality, when it comes down to is, are you showing yourself in your work? Are you showing yourself in your life? Are you feeling it? Are you connected to it? So I think this is the discussion. I think this is just breaking the ice of what creativity is, but I think talking about it in the simplest possible terms is a good place to start.
You were just kind of saying, like, are you showing yourself? Are you showing yourself? And what I was feeling when you said that was, or what I was thinking was, are you showing yourself you? Are you letting yourself see you? And I don't know if that's what you intended or what you were trying to say, but it just was making me think about when it comes to creativity, when it comes to life in general, when we have so much noise externally and there's so much, whether it's your parents or your friends or TikTok or Instagram or your job or just the noise or the city you live in, like quite literal noise, it can be very, very, very hard to access these moments of stillness where we're able to find out what's in here. Like, we have these beings, we have these bodies, we have these human experiences, and we're all so complex. And as I've learn the guitar and re-familiarize myself with the guitar over the past few months, I have started to have memories of, I played the guitar all the time when I was in high school or middle school. I've always been into music, but I had a concept in my head of so many concepts of what does it mean to be a musician, or it's not like I even thought about these things. I feel like growing up, you don't even have a chance to know what you think. You just kind of think things until later on in life, you're like, wait, that bubble pops and you're like, something shows you. And I think for me, it was just doing deep dive into, for example, like one musician I really love, Bon Iver. I never know if I say his name right, but looking back and realizing that he wrote his album For Emma forever ago after a heartbreak that he was going to, and he retreated to his dad's hunting cabin in Wisconsin. And I started looking at these musicians as I'm starting to write music and realizing a lot of these musicians are writing about difficult experiences in their life, hardship. And I think when you pair that, like you have the artist, you have the creator, you have the act of creating the craft, that's one thing, right? We have to separate that from the industry that has been created around that. Like, okay, we have Grammys, people win an award that recognizes the craft they've created. And nothing's wrong with that. But I think the point I'm trying to illustrate is that the industry that our art, especially in America, that the way our art is shared and almost, I don't even know the word, but the way it's shared and viewed and rated, we grow so far away from, oh, this actually might have just originated from a guy in his room in the middle of the night crying or just on the floor, like just trying to make sense of this existence. Like the industry is so far from humanity, it feels like, that the industry, we're forgetting that what about the trees that grow outside? What about the flowers that grow outside? What about the clouds? Oh, how am I even here? So when you take a perspective that comes from nature and existence and the real, undeniable truths of birth and death, you're able to see this a lot clearer. And I think that's what Rick Rubin really does here. He has this way of just simplifying everything, but the word simple, gotta be careful with it, because again, going back to the noise, like when you have all this conditioning, you could read this and be like, what are you talking about? Like, there's no way it's this easy, or at least not for me. At least not for me. And that's where the shift happens, where you realize you are not different than anybody else.
I have a great quote here that is one of my favorite quotes from at least the first half of the book, because that's what I've read. But here it is. It is a truth that lives inside of you. Through your living it, the truth becomes embedded in the work. If the work doesn't represent who you are and what you're living, how can it hold an energetic charge? So that is one of my favorite quotes, because think of any time that you're writing a book, drawing, creating anything that has any level of you in it, and you start to doubt it. It's always so helpful to remind yourself that if this means something to you, if it's something that rings true to you, if your truth is found in this work, if reading or listening, watching, looking at your work makes you feel this truth, then that's all that matters. What it made me think of was one of my favorite classes growing up was English class. I loved looking at old texts like the Odyssey, Greek mythology, Shakespeare, things that were really hard to read. It's basically another language that you had to interpret of what do these things mean? And I think of a lot of works. And like, for example, Taylor Swift's work is something that is basically, she's like a poet who has a lit major, who is speaking in very complex terms that are meant to be analyzed, can be analyzed. And I love to analyze music and I love to analyze works. And I think while I love doing that, I also think that it's funny to analyze these works. Like, we're in English class and we're doing an analyzation of someone's, basically their subconscious a lot of the time. Because when you're creating, or I feel like when I'm creating, when I'm writing, I feel like I am just, my fingers are around a pen and I'm writing and I'm not even really sure of what's coming out. It doesn't even really make sense to me as I'm writing it. But I look back and I learn and I understand. And I'm sure everyone has a different process, but I think we look at the inherent truths of creating when you're trying to create from your truth, something that resonates with you, that makes sense to you. And there's not really a right way to go about it. That's why it's funny to think of people analyzing of, is this the right, am I analyzing this in the right way? Is this what they meant? Because at the end of the day, I don't think there is a right way to interpret any piece of music, any piece of writing, any piece of art, because the beauty of it is when you are creating it, it is yours. And when you share it with the world, it becomes every person's for a different reason. The power is that it holds that energetic charge, that it was truthful to you. So it'll be truthful to someone else. It'll be powerful. It'll be meaningful to someone else. So I really like what he mentioned about the energetic charge, because that's really what travels through a piece that moves you. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter if the comma's in the right place, if the period, if the grammar, if the sonic is all right. In my opinion, I don't think that matters when you're looking at it from a, did this piece move you?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I really like what you're saying, or what you're quoting about how there's an energetic charge, because I think what I love to do on this podcast is zoom out and understand, like, from the foundational components of life and existence, we know that everything is made out of energy. So if I'm sitting there and I'm drawing something, or I'm playing the guitar and I'm strumming away and I'm singing, which I've been doing, what's physically coming out of me is an energetic experience that switches mediums. Like, it goes from like my heart space, or sometimes, like, I really feel like when I play, I feel like it's coming from my stomach, which is, again, the complexity of like we're these beings that have these lived inner experiences that there's this, like Casey Musgrave said, there's a deeper well. There's a deeper well. I found a deeper well.
That's what she said.
He said, my Saturn
like it.
has returned.
It's funny because it's such a simple line, but it's so powerful. She said this. It's like everyone said that. But like it meant something when she said it because it came with a whole album and a whole visual aspect of what that meant to her. So it was powerful because it was packaged up in a feeling of her experience, probably psychedelic trip, healing, all of this. So that's why it had so much power, the energetic charge, especially I think. Okay, you go ahead.
Okay, well, what I was trying to say before was when I was mentioning Casey Musgraves and Deeper Well, I was trying to say that basically when you're creating anything or when we do anything on this planet, energy is in motion with everything. If you're moving a car from one point to the other, from a metaphysical zoom out, everything is energy moving. So when you think about how we've complicated things from an industry standpoint, when you step away from that and you think about, okay, you have a 10-year-old who's just playing the guitar, right? So let's say they're sitting at the beach with their friend. What are they doing? They're just playing the guitar. Like they're just having a good time. They're just strumming it and connecting to something inside of them and resonating with this sound frequency that's being created by the guitar. Not to mention how profoundly interesting it is to think about how music literally vibrates through sound waves. Like that's why when we were saying, Daisy, today, we're talking about Chappell Roan, when you listen to her music, and I think with everyone's music, you're literally getting delivered like an energetic package of somebody. So what I was trying to say is that if we look back to childhood and the things we like to do in childhood, before we started to learn that everything that we have to do in life is for some outcome, to prove something, to get somewhere, and that is something we've learned just by the way we work, and you have to go from point A to point B, you have to do this to get 1,000 likes and get 1 million viewers, especially with the algorithm. I'll go into that later, but it's made us think and really confuse something that is so simple and so foundational to our existence, which is just that you're just being yourself. And that isn't something you have to try. That isn't something you go and buy. That isn't something that you look up into the sky. I'm just trying to rhyme there. But what I said, I think a few episodes ago, it's not about getting anything. It's about removing all of the blocks that you have of why have I been so far away from what I bury deep in this subconscious?
Well, this could go along the deep desire that I think all of us have. Maybe this has been my deepest desire, but I think we all have it. Maybe some of us are closer to it. Maybe I've been very far from it. Finding my voice. I think we all want to hone in on our voice. And you want to be able to get yourself out. You want to get yourself onto something. And that can be anything. You want to see yourself in something else. You want to see your inner world.
And I just want to say, you're saying put yourself out. I feel like my brain, when it would hear that a year ago, would be like, put yourself out there on social media. And what I want to put like a sub asterisk here, like if you're writing a paper, it'd be like footnote, like, no, it's about putting yourself out there in your own apartment when no one's watching. Like, so not even in the reference to social media at all, right? Like that's not what you were saying.
No, it's not what I was meaning at all. I mean more so finding your voice in whatever that is, whether that's you're writing, you don't even know what you're writing. I'm looking outside, like morning pages, you're just writing and you're like warming your mind up and then you're waiting for something to come and something comes. I think to me what art really is, it's finding the deep truth within you and always letting that guide you. So I personally think that art is kind of a way just to live your life, a way to always be guided by that strong truth that is your life's purpose. And that can be sometimes nonverbal. Sometimes that's something that you can't communicate. And then that's where art comes in. That's where stories come in. That's where metaphors come in. That's where poetry comes in. That's where music comes in. That's where drawing comes in. A lot of these deep truths that we can't verbally say, this is what my truth is. that's why we have some kind of art to express it that goes beyond the mind. It goes into the heart, it goes into the soul. So I'll give you, I guess, an example of that. So for the past year and a half, I've written a lot of poetry. Not in order, not under a theme, not with the intentionality of putting it into a book, but more so, it's just something that I've done in the past year and a half. It's something that found me as I was going through a lot of changes in life that really helped me understand what was happening, helped me understand how to make sense of things. Like I needed it. It helped me. It reflected back to me what I was feeling inside. So a year and a half, I've been doing that. I realized recently how important it is to me to package that up and to share it for many reasons. But one, to help me understand what all of this past year has entailed and help me see myself. So the other night, I was so tired. I was falling asleep. And then I was awake, and all of a sudden, like these first few lines came to me. And maybe because I was reading Creative Act, that he's like, the most vulnerable time is between sleep and wake. So I ran over and I wrote down what I wrote. And it felt as I wrote it, it was my truth. It was almost like if my truth has been in me before, it left my body, and in that moment it came back through these words. And through these words on paper, I was able to understand what that was again. It was like a charge that came through me, and I wrote it down. And when I look at that, what I wrote down, the charge comes back within me. And I think that is a good example of art is what allows us to express our truth, that sometimes we're not able to do that in a conceptual way, but it's a feeling. And to me, it was almost like, okay, this is over now. This is what I've learned in the last year, and I've came back to this truth, and I feel more rooted in it than I ever have. Almost like you said you read the Creative Act a year ago, and then you're rereading it now after a lot of life experiences and experience with writing and drawing and making music. So it has a different meaning to you. To me, with my poetry, I started writing it with what was true to me. But as I went through life and as I learned more things and as life got more challenging and I overcame that and came back from that, it's like the same message that the poetry began with is much different at the end of the book with the same message, because it's so cemented in my being. It's so cemented of what my truth is and what I know I am and how I know I want to live my life, that it's a lesson that can't be descriptively described. It's like an emotional experience. So I just think that works of art are a way to express what our truth is within us when words aren't there to do it justice. It's what energy does this work carry?
And I think it's what makes us make sense of life. I remember a few months ago, I think in September, I was feeling a lot one day and I just started drawing. I always doodled, but I never was connected to it. I never really thought anything of it. That's a big thing. Like we kind of dismiss ourselves. We dismiss I even think about how I was in a family band. Like I've always done music, but I've always played music. I've always been passionate about music, but again, it goes back to that label I had about, but that's not because I'm me, because I'm this quote unquote idea of Sophie, thinking I'm these built experiences and this whole idea of thinking I'm something, all the stories I have about myself. I undervalued that someone else would be like, oh, wow, you play the guitar? So fast forward now when I'm talking about art and when I started doodling recently, and then I was laying in bed one day and just feeling really just down, and I started drawing and I was coloring in with the highlighter, and I sent it to my sister and I drew a fun thing that was she was having a housewarming party and I drew something and I was oh, this guy was a cartoon character. I was he's showing up late. And I remember I was transported somewhere. I kind of was feeling really meh, and then I felt that feeling again. I felt kind of the feeling when you're watching a movie, or honestly when you put it on a song or you're reading a book. You have this experience in life. We have this experience in life. We're going through real life experiences, whether that's just growing up, getting older, recognizing truths, family hardships in life, whatever it may be. We have all of that, right? But then we kind of have this magical place we can go to. It really does feel like magic. And I remember, so reflecting on just, it's interesting, I haven't really reflected on it this way yet. But when I was writing that and drawing that, I was like, that feeling. I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute. And this because when you're still and you're present with your experience, like you're going to see shifts. I was like, what is happening? And then something was like deep in my subconscious, like, you want to write a book at some point? And I remember I was talking to my friend Erica, and I was like, I don't want to use AI Illustrator. And then I think I realized, like, oh, let me learn how to draw. And then I did. And then all of a sudden I was like, these pieces were pouring out of me. Like, I was like, whoa, I don't feel different than Van Gogh or any impressionist painter. And that's because what was happening was I was letting myself see what I was capable of. And I think that that's really, really cool because it quite literally makes this life have meaning. And I just want to sum up that statement with, I wholeheartedly would encourage everyone to create, like you said, in their own way. But also the value of other people's creations. Like, think of the beautiful films that exist and that take you to another world or another dimension, and the way we feel, we tap, that's it. Creating helps us tap into a feeling.
Yes. And on that note of you mentioning you drawing that figure for Sarah's housewarming party of making a joke, but it transported you somewhere. When I started writing poetry, it was when I was nannying. So I was getting used to this different schedule and having this different time, and a lot of changes were happening. So I found myself writing a lot because it would help me transport to a different mood, to a different experience. I would notice how good I would feel when I wrote something that felt right, when I wrote a poem that embodied the feelings I was feeling by using metaphors and pulling in different colors and items and objects that would all come together, that would replicate actually how I was feeling. And it would actually help me embody myself more as I would close my journal and get up and I'd be like, okay, it's time to go to nanny. I would find that I was more grounded in who I was. I was more connected to who I was, and I would be able to almost see life through a clearer perspective. And I think that's it. I think when you're creating and when you're getting your truth out on whatever it is your canvas, metaphorical canvas may be, it allows you to see life through the perspective of what your art is. And people have always said, oh, you have an artist's eye. Well, we all have artists' eyes. It's a matter of how do we tune into that. And I swear, if you read one page of this book, The Creative Act, it'll help you tune that creative eye. And I think it's empowering to say, one of the lines he uses in the book, and it's so simple, but it's, you are creating in every moment of your life. And I know I tapped on this, but there is no cap on how creative we can be. We don't have a tank of creative juices that is going to drain if we use too much of it. I think it is the opposite. The more we can experience life through a creative lens, the more creative is going to come back to us, meaning the more I'll notice the little things in nature, the little things in my apartment, the things on my girlfriend's face, whether it's little shadows of how the sun is hitting. It's, you start to see life. And he makes a good example of this too. Anything that you incorporate in your life more and more often, you're going to see more frequently. He was like, well, what if every day you read 10 minutes of old literature as opposed to reading the news 10 minutes every day? You're going to start to see life through quite a bit of different lens. So if you're creating, however that is to you, every day, every week, whatever that means to you, no rigidity there, you're going to start to see life in a more creative way. And I think the point of that is that you enjoy your life more. It helps you be in the moment more. It helps give life that excitement. Like you said, Soph, there's always going to be life things. There's always going to be family. There's always going to be life events that happen. But when you're able to tune into your favorite artist's song, you get to hang out with them. Like I remember the first time I watched one of Chappell Roan's music videos, and I was transported back to being like a 12-year-old in my middle school bedroom, trying on sequin style outfits with my friends and just expressing ourselves creatively. And it made me feel like that again. It reminded me of being at that age and being so inspired by Lady Gaga's videos and the theatrical level of self-expression with Chappell Roan's project, the first one. It really helped me connect to that. And not only just that, but also from like a queer perspective, it was something I'd never seen before. And it totally awoke something within me. And I was excited again. I was inspired to connect with that piece of me. So, and all that is at the end of the day is her truth out in the world. It goes in hand with saying that there is no such thing as bad creation. You can't look at a musician, a poet, an author and say your work is shit. You can't ever say that, because all it ever is that person trying to express themselves. And maybe if someone's just trying to emulate someone else, maybe that's why it's not resonant. Because if we are trying to just express ourselves in any form, it's impossible for it to be bad. At the end of the day, it's really just, does this resonate or not? But if you are in your truth, it's gonna have that energetic charge at the end of the day. So art is kind of the most important thing that helps us live in life and enjoy our life. It's so beautiful. It makes me think of a movie we have to watch, and maybe we should have watched before we recorded this, but we can do a part 2, is Dead Poet Society. Because there's a classic quote from the teacher, who is that? What's the guy's name? Where Robin Williams is teaching all of these like well-off privileged boys at a boarding school who are all going to be lawyers and doctors. And he has some kind of quote where he's like, you know, these are all noble professions, but it's poetry. It's this literature that helps you understand what the point of life is. Why are you here? What are you doing? And he has a very theatrical performance, and it's very moving, and that energetic charge is strong, and it's inspiring, and it's perspective changing. And it's true, because we can go and we can do all these right things in our life, quote unquote. We can do all these things that we're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, if we're feeling empty, and I know this is true for me, it means that I'm not diving deep into myself enough to pull out what that truth is. Because at the end of the day, that is what colors my days with the most bright colors that allows me to enjoy the life that I'm living. So it's a great movie. You should watch it. We're going to watch it, and we'll probably do an episode on it.
I was having a lot of thoughts during that. One thing I was thinking first was that moment when it clicks, whether like for you, you're writing a poem, or for me, like I'm drawing something and I'm like, yes, like that's it. I was curious what you think that feeling is. And because I was thinking, I'm like, it's almost like that feeling when it's like a knowing. First, I'm going to say the opposite would come from, like, you're not proving anything to yourself. Although I will say, watching myself learn how to draw I will say, when I went to draw, the first time I ever drew, everything came out. And I was like, whoa. But then over the next 6 months, when I tried to like learn it and I tried to like perfect things, like the concept of learning and like having to improve really started to get in the way. Yeah.
What do you mean everything came out?
I was feeling really nostalgic at this time. I was listening to a lot of Ray LaMontagne, his Long Way Home album, and listening to the song Long Way Home. And it ends with every childhood has an end. And like that album it hit me at the right, this is the beautiful thing about music, like it just hits you at the right time. And it's almost like you have this little like package with you. You open up like a tent. It's like a magical box with all these beautiful things. And it just so happens to fit perfectly into your own life. And I remember listening to that album and I was like, whoa, there's a feeling like this is making me feel like I'm a kid sledding down a hill and remembering what that beautiful feeling was, and like missing my parents, and like feeling sad just about feeling really nostalgic, and like this recognition that I think we all have in life of like, oh, I'll never get that moment back. And it's really helpful for me to reflect on this now, because I realize I couldn't really make sense of what I was going through then. But when I sat down to draw, all of a sudden, I was drawing cabins and camping stuff and nature and like all these things that I really, really, really cared about that came from no effort at all. They just occurred. And then when I tried to go draw that same cabin 5 months later, you have the ego come in of like, oh, it's not as good as I want it to be. But the first time was never about being anything. It was a true natural expression of just what was.
I remember the first thing you drew because I remember that day so clearly. It actually wasn't the first thing you drew because I know you were going through drawing a lot of characters. But there was another time where I think it's really what you're talking about where you said, quote unquote, everything came out, like nostalgic things. I remember when you drew that cabin and I was like, because I felt connected to that cabin too. I was like, I feel like we're going to live there or something. I feel like we have lived there. I don't know. I feel like we've been there. Some place, maybe in our dreams. But I remember because we got the car fixed that day and I came back and I remember just like sitting in the room and it was like such a nice experience to be in the room with you when you were drawing that because you were emitting something and I felt it and it just felt cozy. And that's a lot because it was like August or October in Austin and it's hot as hell. So I wouldn't say cozy is how I would describe the vibe here, but it was almost like you're drawing. I could feel it come alive in the room. It was like we got to experience that together. Like that drawing represented something deep in your subconscious and it is going to play out in some way, shape, or form, I feel like, because that was something that I felt like I was connected to as well. Like it represented us in some way. So that's really cool.
Well, I'm just thinking about how, like, yeah, I started drawing all these characters, and this is when we started rewatching Rugrats and being like, whoa, the creation of this show is really, really, really cool because you're seeing, like, you're transported back to this nostalgic feeling, but you're also seeing, wow, it was hand sketched and hand drawn, and same with, like, Hey Arnold, and you start to realize, like, so much of what I've consumed my entire life or so much of what I consumed in my childhood, it was the product of someone else's art. And I started to feel like I was tapping back to these memories of being a kid and watching like Slime Time Live or like watching all these really fun, like creative, like colorful shows. And as a kid, I used to write like short stories. Like I've always been so into that. This past fall, when I started drawing again, was the first time I was really present because of hard life experiences. Like I was really, really, really there. And when you're really, really, really there in the moment, like you're actually experiencing what's happening, you're not like distracting yourself, you're really with the feeling. It allows you to experience something. And for me, that something, I guess, came out of drawing, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, I just drew this crazy, it was like opening parts of my subconscious mind up, and I was starting to feel a lot of love. And that's where it's like life can, like we think about all the difficult stuff that happens in life and all these tough emotions, but it's like, is your heart open to love? I'd be curious from a perspective of understanding it from like hertz, like does your heart, I know it radiates up to 6 feet in front of you, but like for what frequency is it? Because you can feel that feeling.
Well, think of in yoga when we do a heart opener, your experience inside, your emotional and experience inside of your body is manifested in your posture. So when someone's closed or hurt or sad, like someone's shoulders are rounded, like your emotions manifest in your body. So when you look at yoga and when you think of like opening the heart, like they're always talking about heart openers. It's like if you change your posture, does that register in your brain to open your heart? I think it's something to think about because your body, they're so connected. And sometimes it's really helpful to like look at it from a body standpoint. I wanted to comment on going through a lot of hard stuff and then getting to art. I think that art can really represent that you overcame something. It's like by the time you get to the process of making the art, it's like your brain is now processing and it's overcoming what you've gone through. It's making sense of what you've gone through creating. It's almost like you're taking this experience and it's being processed in your brain of your life, of what's happened to you. And on the other hand, you, as the creator of what you're making, gets to control that ending in your art and whatever you're creating. So it's like you fuse the experience with how your truth decides how it's going to end, and you fuse those, and that's the creation that you have in front of you. And that reflects back to you, and you are able to say, I've overcame this. My truth is out there. I overcame this. And that's, one of the many reasons why art is so beautiful, or when you've gone through the depths, you see that in someone's work when they've overcame that. And we all need to be reminded that no matter how difficult something in life is, you can always overcome it. So I think art can really represent that. The truths of life, there's no denying, there's no sugarcoating, but when we're able to represent within art that this person who created this has overcame it, there's nothing more beautiful than that. That's the point of life.
Well, I think of the song I wrote, Searching for a Feeling, the one I'm going to record tomorrow. Like, that was quite literally born out of the feeling of, I feel so, I don't even know what I'm feeling. I just wish I could feel like I'm home. I just want to feel like I'm home. But home was this illusionary place of, I know home doesn't exist anymore. It never will, because I'll never be a child again. And it's like searching for a feeling, trying to find myself again. Like, my head's hurt for weeks now, like trying to get up again. Like, my head literally was hurting for, like, I was like playing the guitar with my hood on in the basement. Like, literally, I felt like a teenager again. Like, I used to do this a lot as a teenager, and you kind of feel like, it wasn't fun, but looking back, it's like I recorded that song, and then I started playing it in the car over and over again. And I was like you're saying, like, you almost get to like you have the real lived experience, but then you like put it in a different dimension. You like package it into like a different dimension. And now all of a sudden we're watching a film, or all of a sudden we're listening to a song. And it's like, that's the power, because what came from a really painful experience, what literally came out of my heart of, I'm trying to make sense of this experience, what came out from that way, all of a sudden it was making me feel something that felt kind of good. What is that? Wait, let's pause. Like,
well, I've been reflecting a lot because, and this is going to lead back to your point, I promise. The song by John Mayer, and I've probably talked about this, I know I have in the podcast, Walt Grace's Submarine Test, January 1967. This song has meant so many things to me throughout my life. But I think right now, it's a good time to read some lyrics from it, because I think it might help us answer our question here. The lines are, Walt Grace, desperately aiding his whole place, dreamed to discover a new space and buried himself alive. Inside his basement, tongue on the side of his face meant he's working away at his placement and what it would take to survive. Because when you're done with this world, you know the next is up to you. So there's a lot here I could go into, but with this song, I think it represents that you as the creator of your world, and trying to answer your question as well, going into a very small subsect of your world by creating a piece of art, you get to achieve your truth in that because it bypasses logic, and you get some kind of metaphor on paper and you're like, yes, that feels right. That is mirroring what I'm feeling inside, and there's words and there's an energetic charge that goes with it that reflects back to me my truth. And if we think of the universe giving us signs for this and that to help us keeping going, our art is the same way. It gives us codes it reassures us that we should keep going in our life. It's a motivating factor to keep existing as ourselves. And there's no better way to exist than fully embodying yourself. So I think that when you are creating art and it's getting reflected back to you constantly, there's something there. There's something really special there. It helps you keep going. It's almost like, I think Taylor Swift is a good example of this, because publicly so much has happened to her, and then she goes and writes an album about it and she heals, and then she goes on stage and she goes ham. I think like she's had so many public chapters of her life that the public has taken like this album and said it's about this. But because she has so many albums, she's a good example of, this experience happened to me. I'm going to go ham. I'm going to make sense of this. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to process it by singing it. And people are going to feel something with me. And I'm going to move through it. I'm going to process it. Like, I think
it moves through you.
Right. It's moving through you and like you're experiencing it. Okay. Say some more on that.
Okay. Think about when you go to yoga. You get to yoga. You're kind of like, oh, at least for me, I'm always like, oh, something like in my head, whatever. And then by the end of yoga, what happens? Like energy, going back to the beginning of the episode, like everything is formed through energy. So like when I'm feeling tense, what normally when you come back to the body, what you realize is that I'm feeling really tense. But what I'm really feeling is that my body needs to move. It needs to release energy. It needs to move through me. So typically by the end of a yoga class, I typically feel released and more at ease and quite literally lighter, which I'd like to go into this another episode in the future. Like that, what does that shift feel like when you go from being light to heavy? Like it's such an interesting experience. So when I think about what you were saying about like art and creativity, like I think, and going back to me thinking about like what happened, it was like quite literally like in that moment when I wrote that song, like searching for a feeling, like I think it was almost closure with that experience. Like that was like put it into a song and I was like, oh, that's what I'm feeling. Oh, got it. Oh. You're like, oh, I didn't even know I felt that way. And then you're like, holy shit, I feel that way. It like switched dimensions. It's like the transformation that happens during yoga, during a workout, when you go to a concert. Like everything is energy moving in and out, moving in and out, in and out. So when you think about like creatively, it's a way to process our life. Think of like vomiting like all these beautiful sparkles and it's like it's being born out of you. It's almost like this internal processor in your body's like, all right, guys, we have the department and you guys are going to do this and you're going to do this. Like, we're going to make sense of this experience. Let's put it into a song.
Well, I think art and the experiences that it takes to make art can be really humanizing because what comes out in the art can be a common experience for everyone, but also a very personal experience for you. So it's saying that experience you had when you were 3 years old sitting on your grandma's porch, coming out in this piece of art is validated because there's such a special experience that can't really be said as to why it's special. But it's like these things get put into all of our lived experiences get put and cataloged into something really special. So I think for that reason, it's humanizing because it's validating to you that you are so much more than what your job is, what your status in life is. None of that really matters. And it's taking and it's looking at your life experiences and how you catalog them into something. So I think that can be cool because we all relate to that because we all have those experiences.
And you quite literally can become the main character in your own movie. It's funny because when we think about what a movie is, going back to like the beginning of this conversation, like a movie is a reflection of you have the producer, director, the writer. People are trying to convey a story. And when a story, for some reason, like movies can feel so fun. Like movies are so fun. Like watching a movie, you're going through this whole experience. You're like traveling. If you're like in a 90s rom-com, you're in like New York City, you're like watching like all these things happen. And that can be really, really, really fun. So when you're able to, when you're creating for yourself and you're creating, it's almost like you're starting to feel like you're in a movie. And that's really what that is it's living, I think. Because when we look around all of us, like the movie, it's funny. I had this realization probably a year ago. I was like, wait, the movie is just filming life. Like, it's not like a fake thing. Like, it's like, that's actually, you could actually have that.
Yeah, it's funny because when you say, oh, I feel like I'm in a movie, it's like, no, you just feel really immersed in life. You really focus on the experience at hand. And that's why it feels like a movie. I think it's good to close out the convo with a quote. And I think that it is a resonant quote with this conversation, considering where we're at in the conversation. We're kind of in a silly place. But he quoted Oscar Wilde in the book, and he said, some things are just too important to be taken seriously. And art is one of those things. Setting the bar low, especially to get started, frees you to play, explore, and test without attachment to results. Active play and experimentation until we're happy and surprised is how the best work reveals itself. And I think it is cool. I think we've tried to take that approach with the podcast. I think that there's like the inner critic that wants us to be like more stiff and rigid. But I think, I think we are being playful with the podcast. We're trying to have more fun with it. It's an act. It's a work in progress. But I think that is a great way to approach art and creativity. It's really just to focus on having fun and playing with it and eventually finding surprise with it, because that translates over to how we get to view the world. And that's a fun way to view it.
I'd agree. This conversation was really helpful to have. I feel like it really helped me process a lot of creativity. And it kind of just reminds me, it's just like, the world is your oyster, man. Go out there, do it, create what you want to create. Don't measure yourself. I feel like this is like an introduction to like our creative series. Like, I feel like there's a lot to say on this. So it's ongoing.
Cool. Well, I guess that ties up the convo. Thank you for listening. This is our 3rd episode. And yeah, we're going to start releasing. So by the time that you listen to this, we'll be way in. So stay tuned. We're going to stay with our Tuesday release time, and see you next time.
Adios. Hasta luego.